Okay, so this is the machine that I use for all of my video work, my normal day-to-day desktop stuff. It's a EliteDesk 800G3 Mini. It is a 35 watt. Now this looks like it should be a 65, but what I did is I just grabbed a vented hood from a 65 watt, stick it on here for extra cooling. I believe I also am using the copper heatsink, so you might see that in there. I didn't change and add the case fan on this particular one. Just went with the normal 35 watt. But what I'd like to do is I've noticed a little bit of slowdown when it comes to opening up the folder that has all my videos in it. And right now I'm just using a normal SATA SSD in here. And what I'd like to do is upgrade to this Samsung SSD 980 that I've had sitting around. Both of them are 500 gig SSDs. But of course, with the M.2 SSD, you get the speed is much faster. So I'm hoping that's going to do it. So what I thought I'd do is a walk through. That way, folks can see what it's like going through the process. I'm going to probably use some various software to try and duplicate the drive from one to the other that I've used in other types of situations on a laptop, going from a mechanical to a again an M.2 SATA drive actually. So let's get this guy opened up first and see what we've got, and we'll put in this SSD and we'll do some software with it. So you see we've got a PNY solid state drive in here. We're gonna pop. Actually, we're gonna have to take it out. I was gonna say we're gonna pop it out. We've got to keep it in here so we can do the copy. But for now, in order to get below it so that we can get the the M.2 in, we'll take that guy out. We're gonna need to take out this caddy. Let's grab our T15 bit. Unfortunately, the G3 seems to be the one that takes the longest to get the caddy out because it's got the most screws. The G2 is much different than this. G4, they decided not to add this extra screw here, so it's pretty fast. And of course, if you've got a G3 65 watt, oh, that's even more fun because you've got to take out the fan and you got to disconnect it, and it's a whole 9 yards. So let's move this. Be careful, of course, when you're taking this guy out that you don't pull out the SATA cable. If you do, it's easy enough to stick it back into the slot there. Okay, so we could have used a 2230. I don't have a 500 gig 2230, so we are going to go with the 2280. Let's get a Phillips. These anti-static bags are kind of nice for storing your extra memory and M.2 drives. Pretty inexpensive, something you can pick up. I happened to get mine on Amazon. And just even little, I keep, let's say, my extra flex IO in there, just to help to kind of keep everything organized, and just, they're easy to get to. I guess if you had memory, you could put it in by pairs. Okay, so we've got this guy in. Let's caddy back in. Like to get that first one in, then it kind of stabilizes everything. Then I can put on the attach the SATA cable. And we'll put this one back in. Put the cover back on, and yeah, I guess I do have the copper, if you haven't noticed there. Okay. Put this back on. Okay, we'll hook up power, and I'll change it over to the monitor, and we'll do the next step of actually duplicating the SSD onto the M.2. Okay, so we booted into Ventoy, and now we're going to run Clonezilla so that we can copy the full image from the SATA SSD over onto M.2 NVMe drive. Okay, we just want to do Clonezilla live. All right, English, keep. Okay, we want to start Clonezilla. And what we want to do is device to device. So we're going from a disk or partition to a disk or partition. It's looking for everything that it can play with. I would just do beginner. That seems to work pretty well for me. Disk to local disk. Okay, so this is the important part. We have to make sure we go the right direction. So our source is the PNY SATA drive. And then, of course, our destination is going to be the Samsung 980. If you want to do the checking, repairing, you can do that. I feel pretty good about it, so I'm just going to skip it. So this way, you can either make a complete dupe, or in some cases, let's say you're going from a very small drive to a very large drive, you can do the proportional. And I believe that will then, memory serves me, make it so that way, let's say you don't end up with some unused space. It would actually make the usable space larger. But we're going to just do a total clone. So we're going to say they're used a partition from the source disk. And then when it's done, it's just basically saying, well, what should I do? Well, we'll go to a place where we can choose to do a reboot. Okay, enter. Are you sure you want to continue? Yes. Are you really sure? Yes. And this is where it's just going to collect a bunch of information. Okay. And then this is pretty much where you're going to see the bulk of the action in terms of the copies. It has to do, all the various, like the recovery partition, the main partition. These ones at the beginning are usually pretty fast, and then you'll get to the one that's going to take a little longer. So this one, okay, so this one's going to take about 35 minutes, so we'll come back to it when it's done. Okay, so it looks like it finished up, and we're going to hit enter to go back kind of into the interface. And what I want to do is I want to power off, because what's important at this point is we need to go back into the unit, disconnect the SSD drive so that way there's not some confusion when it tries to boot. That way it knows that it needs to go to the M.2. Plus, whenever you do a clone, sort of the unique serial number, I guess, for the drive often also gets duplicated. So you don't want the system to, again, get confused. So we'll do a power off, and that will also get us out of Ventoy. Literally just take the whole machine down. Okay, we're booting up. Let's see what we get here. And it looks like Windows to me. We'll go in and check it out. As you can see, when I check the properties of that C drive, it shows that it's running on the Samsung 980. So that was a success. Now, as far as getting the Clonezilla, look for on the internet. I'll try to include a link to where I've downloaded it from. You can take the Clonezilla, the ISO, and you can make a bootable USB from it. Tend to really like using Ventoy, because then I don't have to have all these extra ones laying around. I just have Ventoy. I copy it over. If you've never tried Ventoy, I highly recommend it. There are a number of good tutorials on there about setting it up. It's really not that complicated.
And it's nice because then you can also have multiple versions of Windows that you can install from it. So it makes it very handy. But looks like a success.